Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of The Growth Show. I'm joined with our co-host Ollie Phillips and delighted to have Martin Gilbert with us. Martin is a city legend, one of the co-founders of Aberdeen Asset Management, also voted in the top 18 CEOs for leadership in the Harvard Business Review, and currently chairman of Revolut with numerous other ventures on there. Martin, delighted to have you on board today. For everyone at home, everyone should know you, but everyone who doesn't know you, would you just give us a quick potted history of you and your background?
Yeah, no, I was lucky in a funny way, and I was born in Malaysia. My father was Scottish, and like a lot of Scottish sons of farmers, he went to the Far East. And I say lucky because it gave me a perspective early on in life that Asia was going to be the growth engine of the world. And I sent back to school in Scotland, went to university in Scotland, and then, like a lot of kids who are sent to school in Scotland, I became an accountant. Nice safe job. And luckily enough, I'd done a law degree, and the law firm that Aberdeen Asset Management came out for were looking for an accountant with a law degree to join the practice. And I was fortunate enough to get the job. We formed Aberdeen Asset Management in 1983 for management buyout. We bought it for £60,000, and eventually, when it got sold, merged into Standard Life to form Standard Life Aberdeen, it was £4 billion. So it was some journey, and I did 37 years there, 36 as CEO. So I was one of the longest serving CEOs. And I made a decision about 18 months ago, 2 years ago now, to step down. I always believe take destiny in your own hands and go before you're asked to go. So I spoke to the chairman, and we agreed that I would leave. And now I'm doing exciting things again with companies that are about the size I like, which are growing and don't have the bureaucracy that you inevitably get when you get bigger. So there you go. That's a very a potted history of my career.
Perfect. And originally, so your entry in was via the law. Then that was the way in there.
Yeah. I mean, all asset management firms in Scotland were part of law firms or accountancy firms, just by the history that your lawyer tended to be your man of business. You tended to do everything through your lawyer in the 1800s and so on. And that was really the start of the asset management movement in Scotland. And they made money by investing in America, which was an emerging market in the 1800s. So you forget that what was an emerging market then became the greatest market in the world. And we'll probably see that with Asia now. What was an emerging market when we started our business 35 years or so ago is now the real growth engine of the world. So it does show how things move from Portugal, Spain, UK, America to somewhere into probably China or India. So the world does evolve.
Yeah, and talking of evolving. Oh, sorry, Ollie, after you.
No, yeah, I was going to ask Martin, what was the, from your perspective, what was the sort of thinking back to those days when you sort of first started, what was the real excitement? Like, what was the buzz? What was the bits that you just absolutely love that got you up every night and up every morning and kept you awake at night, and all the rest of it?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point on when you're growing a business and when it's small and agile. You do everything, and you get involved in everything, and then eventually you have to learn to evolve as a CEO and learn how to delegate. So. But those early days, just the growth is just what really motivated me more than anything else. So it was amazing.
And what was your perspective on risk with it all, Martin? What was your sort of view on risk, being an asset management business, and you're obviously managing risk, but obviously growing a business of your own. Like, how did you sort of view that? And did it evolve and change over your life cycle?
Yeah, it evolved and got bigger. We were based in a small oil town called Aberdeen, and we then went to London, and then because I'd been born in Asia, we went to Singapore, and that was really the big step for us. But too many people don't take enough risk in their lives when they're in a position that they can take risk. And my view is you're better to try and fail than never to try at all. So you don't want to spend the rest of your life regretting you haven't done something or whatever. So yeah, I always encourage people when they ask my advice. I say, yeah, go for it. I mean, what's the downside? You can only fail. So they lose everything. You can always start again.
I love it. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so there are three of you who are the co-founders of Aberdeen Asset Management, and I think a huge amount of people listening to this are building companies maybe in their first 3 to 5 years. How did the dynamics change between you guys over those first 10 years?
Yeah, I was the assistant. I was their assistant, and they were both partners in the law firm. But we were all managing the money and the funds, because we had about 100 million then and under management, which sounds a lot of money, but the giants of the world are now running trillions. So we all ran money, but I wasn't that great at running the money, and it didn't fascinate me like a good fund manager. The top fund managers love managing money. That's all they want to do. They don't care about the running of the business. They've got huge opinions on the running of the business, but but they don't really enjoy that part of it. Whereas I enjoyed the running of the business. So in football terms, I was more like the manager than the player, if I might use that term. So I enjoyed that, and yeah, eventually the other two retired, and I just carried on really running the business. We had the same management team for about 35 years. About 5 of us ran the business globally, 1 in America, 1 in Asia, 1 in Europe, CFO, myself, deputy CEO. So we had a pretty stable team. And the interesting thing was they all developed with the business as it got bigger and bigger. And, here was a business that made £100 in its first year. And just before the merger with Standard Life made 350 million. So turned over £1 billion. So it was, it grew, and they grew as well. So another great piece of advice I always give people is cover up people's weaknesses rather than get rid of them. People too often focus on someone's weaknesses and think, right, well, let's change them. And all you get is someone with a different set of weaknesses. You're far better working with that person and bringing in someone alongside them who can complement that person. I know that's not good news for you, Nick, as a headhunter, but I'm a great believer in working with the talent you've got rather than changing talent too much.
Martin, can I ask a quick question? Oh, sorry, Nick. I think there's a terrible delay with my internet, but I'll try and dive in, because I seem to be sort of like 2 seconds behind everybody. Story of my life, really, with these sorts of things, isn't it, Martin? But a quick question that I wanted to pick up on was, you mentioned that you love the management of the business, but if you like the people that love managing the money, we call them the rainmakers or the star performers within the funds or whatever else. They had a certain skill set. So I reckon lots of people listening to this will either have started their business with a couple of co-founders, or they've got some star performers who are like the face of the business, but they're having to manage it all. How did you manage ego? How did you manage they're making all the money, but actually you're developing and growing the business? How did you sort of dance between those two?
Yeah, I mean, handling, I was lucky again that I was an Aberdeen supporter in the great days of Alec Ferguson being up here and winning the Cup Winners' Cup. and taking Aberdeen to the #1 team in Europe. And it's fascinating to watch how he deals with talent. And you know, the talent management is the most difficult thing that there is in a business of talented people. I mean, that's all you've got. So you need to treat each of them separately. So I like fund managers with egos because they have to succeed, and failure doesn't come into their sort of thinking. So, I mean, as long as they're not too egotistical and put off everyone or cause disharmony in the team. But I worked for a long time with Hugh Young, and he had no ego. I mean, really, the really top fund managers in the world tend to be humble as opposed to egotistical, because they know how difficult a job it is. They know how they're at the mercy of the markets, and they tend to be very, very good. So the good guys are good, average guys are average, and poor guys are poor. So you've got to find out who's what.
And did you look for that, Martin? Did you look for that? Were there certain sort of like personality traits or key criteria that you could sense? Like, was your ability, if you like, in talent spotting, were you able to identify the ones that were humble, the ones that weren't?
Yeah. And the other thing we did, which I don't think companies make enough of to build a culture, is build it from the bottom and take on lots of interns in the summer, take on lots of grads, and build your business from the graduate level, and take graduates that are good at sport, other sort of are competitive, good at sport. You want some people who are really, really good at maths. You want some who are good engineers. You want some with good personalities who go into different bits of the business. So you want a range of people you take on at that sort of graduate level. But I was always biased towards sport. I mean, people who were good at sport they were an easy touch with me. I mean, as long as they got through the first or second rounds, by the time they got to me, if they're good at sport, that was it. They had no problem.
So I should have given you a ring, Martin. I should have given you a ring, but like, Martin, come on. I'm here, mate. I can throw a rugby ball. Sign me up. Sorry, Nick.
No, I was saying, so you were reading CVs backwards and you were going straight to sports interests and hobbies.
Yeah, because again, too many grads think they have to tick a lot of boxes on the CVs, and I don't know. I like people who've done something different, and I also remember my son joined the Navy straight from school as a helicopter pilot, and then he went to university, and he was saying, "What do you think they'll ask me when I go for my interview?" I said, "I guarantee they'll ask you about helicopters. Anything different that you can speak to someone about with these at graduate interviews. Really, it's refreshing, because most CVs are the same. I've been to this school, I've got these A's, I've got this, I've been at this university, I'm a member of the investment club, and stuff like that. Yeah. So you really want people who've done something different, come from difficult backgrounds as well. I really like people who have really fought their way up. That's the other thing I like, because they don't want to go back to where they've come from. And all the top footballers in the world, they tend to come from poorer backgrounds rather than upper class backgrounds. So yeah.
So how would you describe the culture?
Go on, Nick.
Sorry, I'll go to this. How would you describe the culture? How did it change? Obviously, there's the first 10 years, I guess, scale up, startup sort of mode, and how did it evolve? And how did you keep that culture?
Yeah, you by short lines of communication. I think you don't want to have too many people between you and how many layers of management. I would recommend keeping them as few as possible. I never had an office, which helped. I always sat out with the fund managers. because you could sense what's going on then. I mean, I had an office, but it was used to store my golf clubs, and if someone wanted to have a meeting with me, I'd go into my office, but I never sat in it with the door shut. And I don't like this. I think too many CEOs probably detach themselves from the business, go to the top floor. I mean, when I visit a lot of CEOs of banks and so on, they're totally isolated from the business. They're on the top floor. It takes you, the security to get to them is immense. And I just think the more you can keep attached to the business, the better.
Martin, how did you manage that though? What was the big, as you grew from 5 people, 10 people to then hundreds, thousands of people? How did you sort of remain, if you like, in contact with the business? And what would you have seen as your biggest challenge as you went through that growth cycle, or those growth cycles, whichever way you look at it?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is becoming detached, as I say. So what I would do is travel constantly to the offices. I would try and go. I mean, I hate going to Australia because it's such an awful journey. But I would always go once a year to our Australian office. And the Asian offices, I would go 2 or 3 times a year. So yeah, I mean, that was the way you kept in touch with people. And you always, when you go to an office, you always go and have a drink with them after work or something like that. So that's how I kept in touch. And yeah, I would say that was the single easiest thing.
Can I ask then on top of that then, like as you sort of grew into the role of leading and managing the business, I'd love to know what did leadership mean for you at the beginning? And then as you evolved through, did your perspective on leadership, both for you and for those people working for you, change? Or have you got a view on leadership overall as from a business perspective?
I don't know. I mean, I never thought of myself as a particularly good leader. I mean, I managed to engender a lot of loyalty from people, which has always surprised me. I was a good leader in times of crisis, and I think that's the measure of a good CEO, is how you deal with the bad times, not how you deal with the good times. It's easy to be a CEO and a leader in the good times. I don't know what I was just myself, I think, and I was confident I would make decisions, and I think that's another thing CEOs need to do, is just make decisions, because people just want decisions, and most of the time they come to you just for reinforcing what the correct decision. They say, I'm thinking of doing this, and I'll ask them, what do you think? And they'll say that. I'll say, yeah, fine, go ahead. And that's it. Most people just want to know that they're on the right track. Occasionally I would say, that doesn't sound good to me. So yeah, it came naturally to me.
Yeah, and I imagine there was, what I'm getting from talking to you today, a consistency, right? You seem like someone who doesn't sort of flip-flop too much, sort of good listener and taking on. And would you say that was a key part of your management?
What, listening or?
Listening and having a constant approach with people.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I have a very short attention span, so I'll listen for a very short time. So people know not to take 10 minutes to say what they can say in a minute, because that's all I want. I just say, listen, what do you think? Okay, fine, go ahead. Yeah, I don't have
we're
time.
Doing phenomenally well then. We're doing phenomenally well then, Martin.
Yeah,
36 minutes and counting. Unbelievable.
I don't mind. Yeah, yeah. This is fun though. This is fun. This is not boring work. Someone coming in and telling me what you're not going to believe what's happened now. I say, I promise I'll believe you.
And so, on that point of CEOs, what do you think's the number one mistake CEOs are making at the moment, or the thing they should watch out for the most?
I think become detached. And I always remember one of my friends was a politician, and he became a government minister. And I always remember this chap turned in from being a normal sort of human being to someone the civil servants called minister, you know. And you could see that people just get. I think you just got to make sure you don't get carried away with your own importance or perceived importance, because people see through that. So that I would say that try and remain attached to the business and find out what's going on. I think more than anything else, and appoint good people round about you. That's the key.
Martin, just on that as well, just thinking, like, looking obviously contextually as what's going on in the world, like right now, and particularly from the UK, but, you know, obviously COVID and, you know, Brexit and whatever else. Are you seeing, like, I guess, looking at risk more broadly, what's the biggest risk that you're currently seeing for, you know, business owners, and what do you think is going to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff moving forward?
Well, I think there's a lot of trouble being stored up in business. I think there could be a very, very sharp rebound, probably sometime in the second quarter. So I'm hopeful that by the second quarter, the bulk of the population will have been, the bulk of the vulnerable population will have been vaccinated, and there'll be more herd immunity in the system. So hopefully by then we should see a very sharp recovery in the UK. It's just surviving till then if you're a small business. The big businesses are doing fine. I mean, you can tell by the stock market there is a huge. Some of them are doing really well, food retailers, etc., and some are doing badly, airlines, etc. But markets are a bit high, in my opinion, especially the US. Still too much focus on. There's too much momentum. What we see as momentum in the market, i.e., if something floats, everyone piles in. It's the herd, and you can see that with Bitcoin. I mean, it goes to 40, then back down to 30. So it's really, the volatility is massive in the world. So yeah, I'm worried about markets.
And do you think that is one of the biggest risks that, you know, if you like, business owners face in general, right? Whether or not they're in markets or not in markets, it's I guess that, you know, that herd, that mass following, just keeping up with the Joneses. Like, how do you differentiate between that? How do you stop yourself from saying, you know what, everyone else is doing this, but I'm not? Like, how did you sense check that when you were playing?
The great fund managers, of course, do that, don't they? They do the opposite of the crowd, but that's so hard when you're standing you're standing in front of a train. I mean, the train's going to win for a while. I mean, so that's the big issue. How long can you take the pain? And you've got to remember, a lot of people cut at the point of maximum pain. So, they take the pain, and then they just cut, and they just can't take it any longer. So it's a really tough thing to do, to take the opposite view of the market. Hence, we're seeing these momentum trades. So when someone goes into Bitcoin, they all go into Bitcoin, and then they all come out. So you see these massive swings. But I mean, it was obvious in March this year that markets had were undervalued. So anyone who went into the market in March has done pretty well, or held through that downturn in March, which is good. But valuations do look too high.
Sure.
Yeah, and the flood of retail, devaluation of the dollar, it's just
retail's a tough place to be. I mean, clearly the high street is a tough place at the moment. COVID has just exacerbated the long-term trend there. But it's not dead, and you can see those with good delivery options are doing pretty well. And same in property. If you own warehouses that Amazon rent from you, you're going to do well. If you own a big shopping center, you're going to have a tough time for a while until things rebalance again.
Perfect. Ollie,
Nick, Martin, do you mind if I just ask you? Yeah. I wanted just to try and bring it back onto sort of the culture piece and the people piece, because I love this the narrative of how you managed to create so much loyalty in your business, right? And I'm wondering now, when you go into your roles as like chairman at Revolut, or you were chair for a while at Sky as well, I think, or you're on the board at least. How did you have a specific approach to company culture and how you engendered and fostered loyalty amongst all your staff, or like what was the secret behind all of that in terms of creating a company culture and creating loyalty amongst all your people?
I think creating it from the bottom, I mean, it's the only way to do it. I mean, we were an amalgam of a lot of businesses, basically, because we did about 40 acquisitions and we integrated them all. We kept great people from all the acquisitions we made. So the culture sort of developed, but it was the same. It comes from the top and it comes from the bottom. Those are the two ways you create it. I think as chairman, you don't have a huge amount of influence on culture. The CEO is the key person, and I see that at Revolut with Nikolai, who's an amazing guy. I mean, absolutely amazing. This driven guy, and he's created a culture of excellence and just get it done and so on. So and that's what I love. It reminds me of Aberdeen in the early days, actually, which was a culture of get it done, and then let's worry about how we're going to manage the money afterwards, if you follow me. So
yeah. And just because if you look at some of the great, if I related back to sort of my world of sport or whatever else, you get the the All Blacks philosophy of like no dickheads or anything like that. So I didn't know if there was some strict rules that you applied in your sort of philosophy of like
there is
bandwidth, but
I think no one being allowed an office. It's a bit like the All Blacks. It's a bit like the All Blacks, isn't it? Even the top guys, the captains, have to sweep out the dressing room. And I think it's that equal sort of that I think is important. So and I do agree with their philosophy of no dickheads. I think it's a great book, that, by the way. It's one of the best management books.
James Kerr.
Legacy.
James Kerr. Legacy. And then, but Martin, just out of interest for people as they, because I think this would be quite an interesting conversation, right? How do you, as you grow and as your business gets bigger, more money involved, more responsibility, more visibility, et cetera, like what did you do to sort of sense check and keep yourself grounded and make sure you kept that mantra all the way through? Because people clearly thought that of you because they stayed with you all that time. So whereas other people lose their best players because they think they become egotistical or whatever else.
I don't know, honestly. I never thought like that, and I remember someone saying to me, "Don't read the press about yourself because you're not as good as they say they are, and you're not as bad, and you're not as bad as they say you are." And so I didn't do that, and because again, you can just start to believe your own publicity. You've got to keep your feet grounded, and as I say, the tough times at Aberdeen, 2002 to 2004, taught me a valuable lesson that you can almost wreck a business. And we took our business from $1 billion market cap to 50 million. We lost 95% of our share price during that time, and I was fortunate. I managed to settle with the regulator. We had a regulatory issue, and that taught me a very valuable lesson that you've got to really, really not take too much risk in your business. At that time we were leveraging up funds and so on, and I learned a valuable lesson that it's not it's not lack of capital that kills you. It's lack of liquidity that kills you in these things. So you can see things like Northern Rock were well capitalized. They just didn't have any liquidity, and that's what caused them to go down. So yeah, I think just try and keep grounded if you can.
Yeah, and by staying
Correct.
grounded, is that by just keeping a constant focus on the business and just not engaging with the sort of focusing on your own game rather than other people's?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and as I say, I mean, I never had an office, so I would be in the office on the. It's not a dealing floor, obviously, in fund management terms, but it's where the fund managers sit. So they would see me and they would speak to me, and I would ask them. And again, it's a bit like in footballing terms. If a player is underperforming, and a fund manager is underperforming, all I would say to them is, listen, whatever you do, don't change your style. Don't cut at the point of maximum pain. Are you happy with the stocks you own? If you are, just ride it out. Don't try and trade your way out of the situation. So yeah, no, it was and those sort of things. So it was that ability to go out and speak to them because they were sitting close to me. I mean, they were all over the world, but yeah, I just tried to keep speaking to people. I think. Go for and if there's a problem, go for a drink with them after work or something like that. And speak about it then. And that's where you really find out what's happening when you go for a drink after work. They tell you how useless you are.
Yeah.
Which is part of the challenge
comes
now.
out there, doesn't it?
Yeah, the truth comes out.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
in the now, then, Martin, what's the challenge? What's the mission with you and Revolut? What do you see as the reason they brought you in? I
just want to just help Nikolai if I can. Just make sure he doesn't support him. I mean, I think the key thing for a CEO is to have a supportive chairman, because the last thing you need is a chairman who's not 100% behind you, because it's an exhausting enough job without having to watch your back. And I had about 6 or 7 chairmen. They were all great. I mean, I never had any issue, and it makes your job so much easier if you've got a chairman who's open with you, tells you if there's going to be a problem, sorts it out, etc., etc.
Perfect.
It's weird, actually, Martin, you mentioned that. My the thesis I did for my Cambridge MBA was around what makes an effective board.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated to hear you said that all yours were great. So you said you had a supportive chairman. What about the sort of more broader context that you felt from your board members, and also then that you brought as a board member? Were there any sort of particular things that you felt that they should do that you saw in other businesses them not doing? And what do you try and bring now in your roles as sort of chairman or board member?
Do you know most? It's a really interesting point, that, because I have this theory that most non-executive directors are supportive when things are going well, and then when something starts to go wrong, they become questioning. And I think they should be the other way around. They should be, when things are going really well, they should be questioning you and saying, why is it going so well? What is it that's going? And then when the shit hits the inevitable fan, they should be saying, listen, fully understand how we've got here. Now we've all got to pull together to get us out of here. And I think that's and good directors are like that. So the good directors, the good non-execs, the good chairman the good chairmen speak to you outside board meetings, and the good non-execs speak to you outside the board meetings. If they've got a serious problem, they don't bring it up at a board meeting. They warn you about it and say, look, I'm going to bring this up. You better bloody well get it sorted. So those are the sort of things that I think are really important for non-execs. Yeah,
awesome. And Martin, just out of interest, now, obviously just having celebrated your 21st birthday, still a young whippersnapper, as you know. But what would you give yourself? What advice would you give a young you if you were to sort of reflect back and say, look, actually, these are some of the things that I would do differently, or is there anything that you would reflect on and think you do more of, less of?
Yeah, look, I've been incredibly lucky. I think what you got to do is ride your luck. I think if you find yourself in the right place at the right time, just ride the luck. It goes without saying, you've got to work hard if you've got your own business, and there's nothing more satisfying than working for yourself. It's just much better than not, if you follow me. But yeah, I would say if you get a chance, as I said at the beginning, if you get a chance, give it a go. Better to try and fail than not to have tried at all. But better to try and succeed, of course. But yeah, I'd give it a go.
Martin, how do you, just out of interest, how have you found the transition, if you like, from like owning the reins, like running your own business, and if you want to go left, you go left, or whatever else, to the chairman role of guiding and coaching and nurturing, but it's not necessarily your business to, if you want to go left, you can't necessarily go left.
Yeah,
I found it.
Yeah, I found it easy, and I enjoy it because I've done it. I did it while I was CEO, so I think also CEOs should be on one other board, so they see how other boards operate and so on. So I was fortunate. I founded. I was a founding director of a bus company, and we built it into one of the biggest surface transport companies in the world called First Group. And then I was on the Sky board, which was fantastic. I mean, I loved Sky because, of course, sport and all that sort of thing. And I'm on the board of Glencore, which I enjoy, which is a global mining company, which is a phenomenal company. So yeah, and I enjoy these. I enjoy seeing other businesses as well, because one of the great advantages of being a fund manager, you had this insight into all these businesses that you invest in. So I know a little about a lot rather than a lot about a little. So I knew a small amount about a huge number of companies and businesses. So it was again part of the huge advantage of being a fund manager.
Yeah, I love that idea.
That you had money. It helped. It helped that you also had money that you're going to be giving them, Martin.
Yeah,
they became your best friends as well, potentially. Yeah.
I used to say that to fund managers. I said the brokers are only laughing at your jokes because you're giving them commission. Don't think they really want to. Yeah.
Sorry, Nick.
No, I think you encouraging CEOs sitting on the boards is great, because a lot of the newer sort of CEOs, there is a massive bubble they live in, right?
Yeah.
And the only other piece of advice they're getting is from their board, and some of the size of some of these boards is quite small, so they're relatively limited on the input they're getting. So I think that encouragement of getting them to have a bit more of a diverse look on the world is, especially right now, essential.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking to CEOs, other CEOs is actually a good thing as well, because they're sharing the same problems that you are, which is that the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if it goes wrong, it's your head that's on the line. So there's a sort of common bond between CEOs. So I get on well with other CEOs.
Yeah, it's quite. It's quite a lonely job.
Martin, did you? Yeah. I was going to ask. I was going to say, did you find it a lonely existence? Obviously, when the chips are high, chips are going well, everyone's probably your best friend, and when they're low, you find out who really is. But how did you sort of counter that to make sure that you because I speak to a lot of chief execs, and they say it's a lonely existence. But did you find that, and how did you sort of counter that? How did you make sure that it wasn't?
Yeah, no, I never found it that lonely, because we were quite a team. But yeah, the lonely times are in the bad times. It's lonely because the buck stops with you, as I say, and you can feel the responsibility when you're doing a deal as well. I remember once when we were buying Deutsche Asset Management's UK business, I remember sitting in a room thinking, I thought that was one of the lonely moments when I put the terms to the other side, and and it was my decision. And and it was fine. It worked out okay, thank goodness. But yeah, I remember thinking, Jesus Christ, this is big, because they were twice as big as us, so that was a big deal for us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
That is great. Martin, thank you so much for your time today. I think, as you can probably tell, Ollie and I have a lot more questions, and some of them probably best said asked off camera, I think, as well, actually. Which I think would be good fun. Hopefully we can all meet up at some point when we're allowed to, in some capacity. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks everyone at home for tuning as always, and we will see you all very soon. All the best. Goodbye.